there's a continuity in the way that we live our lives in the world. Are these things old? Yes. Are they obsolete? Absolutely not. So with that in mind, I've spent a lot of time in the Holy Lands and studying the records in the Holy Lands. So let me just start. 1946, there was discovery made in Qumran, in the Dead Sea area, and I know many of our viewers are familiar with this. The discovery was called the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, what's interesting is that and you can't make this stuff up. I mean, this is how the universe works. There were a series of caves, 11 caves that were discovered in Qumran. And from those 11 caves, over 3,500 scrolls and fragments of scrolls were discovered. And people say, well, what's the big deal? The big deal is they were the oldest records of the Old Testament and the foundation of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism that have ever been found that were not edited. And they pushed the dates back 1,000 years. All of the texts that were found before that had all been subject to the edits that had happened over the centuries. So now here's the kicker. They were discovered in 1946. There was a legal battle, and the Vatican lobbied heavily to prevent the translations from being allowed into the public arena until the early 1990s. And you have to say, what could possibly be in a 2,500-year-old scroll that would warrant the legal battles and the jockeying and the power plays? What could possibly be in there that would influence our lives today? Yeah. The answer to that question is the structure for what you and I are talking about here. And here's the part you can't make up. It was in the first cave, in the first vase. These vases were about 2.5, 3 feet tall. They're not like little, they're big. They were sealed with pitch and tar, and so they were well preserved. So in the very first cave, in the first vase that came out of the first cave, and the first scroll that was pulled out of the first vase is the answer to everything we're talking about here. It is a scroll that's called the War, W-A-R, War Scroll. And what the War Scroll says is that you and I and the world today, as modern as we believe we are part of an ancient battle that has been playing out for a very long time. And the exact words in the scroll is a battle between what is called the sons of darkness and the sons of light. Today, we would interpret that as a battle between good and evil. And I was in an audience recently, and I just want to say, I don't think I need to say this for your audience, but I want to honor everyone here. There was a woman that was offended by the term sons of darkness and sons of light. They didn't address gender 2,500 years ago the way we do now. Sons is all inclusive of male and female. It's humanness. So we are in this ancient battle between the sons of darkness and the sons of light, between good and evil. Now, when I was a kid, I was born and raised right in the middle of the United States of America. A state is called the state of Missouri. It's a rural area. I grew up in a rural area. When we talked about good and evil, it was always kind of a joke. It was like there was a little red devil on your shoulder that had horns and a pointy tail. And then there was this little angel over here, and they were always having this conversation and telling you what to do. And you'd say, oh, shut up, devil, or shut up, angel, I'm going to do it. What I want to say is that the forces of good and evil are real. They're very, very real. And that they have played out and defined the history of this planet since the first of our kind walked on this earth, because we are part of this battle. However, the battle ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's less obvious, sometimes it's more obvious. The year 2030 represents a convergence point for a lot of reasons, not just because of the UN, not just because of the WEF, but there are cosmologic cycles, there are astrological cycles, there are astrophysical cycles, there are geophysical cycles, all converging right around that 2030 time frame. And what we're seeing in the world, a lot of people think the world is just coming unglued. They just think it's coming apart at the seams, and that everything we're seeing is spontaneous. It's not spontaneous. It's organized. The chaos is organized, and what we're seeing are individuals, forces, governments, corporations, people in positions of power are jockeying for the best position they can get in by the year 2030 as this battle between good and evil comes to a focus in the year 2030. The battle, sometimes it's more obvious than not. Sometimes the battle is kinetic. A kinetic battle we're all familiar with. That's boots on the ground. That's Ukrainians fighting Russians. That's Hamas fighting the IDF. Those are, it's World War I, World War II. Those are kinetic battles, and we all know that. But that is one form of evil. But there are so many forms of evil. There is biological evil, and that's what we're going to talk about here. Biological evil is when our bodies are modified to prevent us from being the best version of ourselves. There is psychological evil. That's what's playing out on the World Wide Web and social media, where we are being fed. I know this is happening, and I'm still in awe of how sexy the marketing is and how attractive the technology in being embedded into our bodies. There's YouTube videos that show people with RFID chips in their bodies, and the birds are singing, and the dogs are running, and they're happy, walking down a street on a spring day, carefree, because the marketing doesn't tell you what you've given away. When we incorporate the AI into our bodies and the computer chips in our bodies for efficiency and speed, which they definitely give us, the price for that is our humanness. And the term that you mentioned is divinity, is a big part of that. So I just want people to know that the evil plays out. There is psychological evil. There is financial evil, obviously. There is social evil. It plays out in a lot of different ways. So I want to be able to, at the very least, when we finish this conversation, I want people to know, not to judge, but to discern, to be able to recognize where evil is in their lives. All right, so the battle between good and evil, between the sons of darkness and the sons of light, that battle is creating the diversions. So everything that we're seeing in the world, the refugee crisis, that's real. The climate crisis is real. All of the social injustices, those are all real. And they have all become diversions from the deeper battle, and that is the battle for our very humanness, because we are the prize. We humans are the prize, and here's the reason. It is through our humanness, through our biology, through our DNA, through our genetic makeup, that we have access to a force that no other form of life has access to. So I'm going to use the word. I'll say it, then we'll define it, and then we'll explain what this means. And you already mentioned it. The word is divinity. Now, a lot of people, that word can have some baggage, and I fully acknowledge that because I felt the same way. A lot of people link divinity with religion, and that is one expression of divinity. But the contemporary definition, this is so cool. The contemporary definition of divinity simply states that divinity is our ability to transcend perceived limitations. And that's it. To transcend. Transcend means to become more than, not just to meet, but to become more than the limitations.
Hey there, Inspired Evolutionary. If you absolutely loved this, well then here's a full conversation with this guest on the Inspired Evolution podcast. Check it out now.